So, we've got some Google Stadia news for you guys today. And it turns out that Google is deciding that they are no longer going to be supporting in house development of their games. Their game studios, effective immediately, will be shutting down, and instead they will transition the company into a purely streaming service. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means quite a few things. The first thing it means is that Google is now beginning the first steps of abandoning Stadia. That's right. Google, which made Stadia to the dismay of many of us, myself included. I was a major proponent against Stadia for a lot of reasons. Turns out that Google has finally seen the writing on the wall, and they are tired of spending good money over bad, and they are going to stop. They're going to stop making games for Stadia. Now, the problem with this initially, as many of you are probably coming to realize, as I have realized, and it's one of the reasons I'm doing this video, if Google doesn't believe in Stadia, who does? If Google isn't willing to invest time and money to make Stadia sing, to do the craziest things with Stadia, very similar to what Nintendo has done with their IPs, very similar to what PlayStation does with their studios, and what Xbox has unfortunately been trying to do for many years now. If you are not willing to push your own platform to the limits, who is? Who's going to believe in you? No one. You know, when Nintendo came out with these goofy controllers, whether it be the Wiimote or the Switch controllers, whatever, they had games lined up ready to go to say, look, you guys think this is a stupid idea, but it's not, and I'm going to show you why. And then they would release a game like Wii Bowling, which took the world by storm. Or, you know, the 3DS comes out and they say, hey, look, we have technology here that supports that. We're going to make a game that shows you how great 3DS technology is. And they release a remake of Zelda, or they do Bravely Default or something like that. This is where these studios really shine. And you want more recent examples? Well, look at what PlayStation is doing with Ratchet and Clank. They're like, hey, we have this really cool solid state drive. We really believe in this technology. We're going to make a game that utilizes the solid state drive in a way that no other game has. So if Google isn't willing to put that development money into their product, that's basically saying to everybody else, you know what? Streaming service, it is what it is. You figure it out. We'll just be here to provide this strong backbone that you really need. And the truth is, it's a competitive marketplace. It is very easy to get into gaming, whether it is mobile, whether it is PC, whether it is Xbox, whether it is PlayStation, whether it is Nintendo, whether it is retro, whether it is arcade. The list goes on and on and on. It is very easy to get into the game space today in 2021. So when you look at all of that, you say, okay, there clearly are solutions here. You have to ask yourself, what does Stadia then provide? What service is Stadia going to give you that nobody else does? Is it some revolutionary controller? Is it next generation graphics? Is it a ridiculous price point? Is it ease of use? Pick one. I don't care. And when you look down that list, you're going to find that there really isn't anything that Stadia offers that isn't already kind of available somewhere else. I think Xbox, when they released their streaming service, I think that was really the writing on the wall, because that was already included in your subscription. Now Google wants to charge you, money to basically play games that you have to still buy. And I know there is a free version of Google Stadia, but it doesn't run the games the way that Google Stadia needs to. And it's very contradictory to what Google Stadia's premise is, that you don't need to be a rocket scientist. Anybody can get, next generation 4K, 60 frame a second graphics. It's very easy to do. You just use the backbone of Google, you buy our fancy controller, and we'll take care of the rest. Well, that's not entirely true, because in order to unlock that subscription, or that service rather, you have to have a subscription. It's behind a paywall. So it's not just as easy as start playing a game and give us money and we'll get off to the ground. That's not what's happening here. So What is happening, though, is Google is really kind of fading away at this point. And I really think a lot of us believed that this would happen. I've done numerous videos on my experience in the beta period with Google Stadia. I got to try out Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I had some pretty critical feedback of it then. I definitely wasn't a very big fan of the service that they had. I thought their controller was a ripoff of other controllers that had done it much better. It just didn't really seem to offer a lot. The services that Google really tried to put, their claim on. One, if you recall, was the ability to very easily share content and very easily get information about games in a very quick and simple manner. And there was a video that they showed of somebody playing, I believe it was Tomb Raider, and they were stuck on like a puzzle. They couldn't figure out what to do. And they very quickly pressed the button, and magically YouTube, through the magic of, screen recognition, instantly knew where they were at and said, okay, clearly you are standing here. This is the area you need help with. We are going to give you a walkthrough, whatever. That was a very revolutionary idea. I knew it wouldn't come to fruition. Spoilers, it never came to fruition. But that's the kind of stuff that if you want to make a dent in platforming, that isn't just a traditional console. If you're not trying to do something like Xbox or PlayStation, you need to have some sort of gimmick or some sort of game that everybody's going to draw to. I guarantee you a lot of people went out and bought the Valve VR set when they realized that Half-Life Alyx was only going to be available on that platform. I know they did, because that was a must-have game. That's the same reason a lot of us went out and bought N64s, because we wanted to play Mario 64. That's the reason why PlayStation continues its dominance on the console market, because they have world-class exclusive games that people want to play. When you take those things away, when you take away the creative backbone, when you take away the creative drive to make a console that is supposed to be this true next-generation streaming service, what are you left with? Well, nothing. And that's where we're at with Google. They're not really left with anything. You don't have a studio that's working on games that's unique to Stadia's platform. You don't have any technology that is going to enhance the Google Stadia experience. And you are still tethered behind a paywall that a lot of people just really don't want to pay for. You can argue the points and say, hey, look, man, a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5, they're not cheap. Same thing with an Xbox. I guess Series S definitely is the cheapest of the bunch. But, that pays for itself in time. If you want to have a 60 frame per second 4K experience on your home television, you can go out and buy a used PlayStation, and there are games that support that. There are games that support that on Xbox as well. Think about that cost that you're paying Google every single month for a subscription to get that same performance. And think about how fast your investment is going to be returned if you decide to just say, you know what, I would rather go out and buy my own console and just cut the wires essentially. Yeah, you may still have to pay for ancillary services like Gold or PlayStation Plus to play online, but roll that into the cost even as well. And you'll see over time that it just doesn't make a lot of financial sense for people to invest in Google. And this is what happens when a big tech company has a lot of big tech, but not a lot of really good ideas. Any gamer would tell you that this was an idea destined to fail. And I guarantee you that a majority of people who read this news today, as I have read this news today, are laughing and saying, you know what, I really dodged a bullet there. I am glad I didn't buy into that Stadia Founders Edition and get this limited edition controller and reserve my screen name so nobody takes it. And, I could jump on that bandwagon and play great games from day one. This is not what this is. This is falling apart. It's a bad design. And Google has a very big problem. Google, the company, has a very big problem when it comes to starting a technology and abruptly killing it. And they do it in multiple stages, and we are pretty much to stage 4 at this point. They're not essentially saying Stadia is over. If you are still paying for Stadia, they will gladly take your money. But your value in that subscription service just dropped to almost absolute zero at this point. There's really no reason left to invest in Google Stadia or even really consider talking about it. And honestly, short of any revolutionary news coming out of it, I will probably not be talking about it anymore. This just seems somewhat newsworthy and also was kind of a precautionary tale. You know, it's great to have ideas. It's great to have technology, but you have to understand when you're talking about a service, it has to deliver. And this is where games with the service really fall apart. A lot of the time, Anthem is a great example. It's a solid idea. It makes sense on paper. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if XYZ? And then it stops. The development stops. The content stops. In this case, in-house development stops. There's nothing left for these guys to work on. There's nothing left for these guys to make. And ultimately, the idea just starts to fall flat. I would give Google Stadia, honestly, another year before they entirely pull the plug. I can't imagine they're still dedicating really much time or effort to this. Any of the exclusive demos or premieres that they had, I remember they signed an exclusive deal with Ubisoft to get Gods and Monsters, or what do they call it now? Immortals, Phoenix Rising. They got an exclusive deal to get them an early beta. You could only play it on Stadia. The game dropped in price ridiculously cheap to the point where people could just flat out buy it. That deal just wasn't really a very good exclusive deal. And anybody who is knowledgeable with the gaming industry would say, wait, do not pay money for an Ubisoft exclusive game. You know, another, I don't want to say throwaway open world, because the game does play well and Metacritic did give it a decent score. But don't, you know, this isn't the game you want to hang your hat on. This is, you know what I mean? This isn't the one where you go, hey, you know what? We're going to get a great game and we're getting this. This just shows yet another reason why the brains behind Google Stadia just were not game-focused people. Maybe great designers, maybe great inventors, maybe great general businessmen, definitely not gamers. And I can promise you, as a gamer, you can snuff this stuff out immediately. And you immediately know this is definitely not worth your time or your money. And basically what Google is saying to you is, hey, you know what? We agree with you guys. This is not worth your time and money. This is definitely something that we would rather just kind of, you know, throw away, fade into the sunset, as it were. So what I want to hear from you guys, leave some comments below. Let me know your thoughts on Google Stadia. Did you see the writing on the wall, or did you get hyped up in it for a while? The promise of these amazing next generation PC graphics with just a click of a button, or did you see through it? And then ultimately, you know, now that Stadia is dissolving, is this really kind of the nail in the coffin for any streaming service outside of what Xbox is doing, which is basically included in the price of your service? Like, is there anything left we really need to desire? I don't see it happening. It's going to have to take some phenomenal game or some phenomenal play experience to draw people back in. And I think if a company with as much money as Google cannot figure out how to make some kind of technology like that work, I really doubt anybody will. So with that, I'm closing out this video. I hope you guys found it informative. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.